On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the women's flyweight title fight as the co-main event of UFC 322 between champion Valentina Shevchenko and Weili Zhang. My name is James Lynch. If you've never watched this series before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats and intangibles, and then at the end of this video, I'm going to give you my prediction for this fight. Let me know in the comments after you're done watching this video which way you're leaning on this one. I want to get your prediction for this fight. Don't just give me a pick. Give me an actual prediction. Want to hear how you are viewing this fight. And like we usually do, let's do a quick tale of the tape between these two. We've got Valentina Shevchenko, 25-4-1, 26-3 for Weili Zhang, 37 years old compared to 36, 5'5" to 5'4", 65.5 to 63. So Weili Zhang moving up from strawweight, but not a huge difference as far as the height and reach. Even age-wise, very similar there too. Let's start first with the current women's flyweight champion, Valentina Shevchenko, and talk about all the great stuff that she has done over her career. So I mentioned it there, 25-4-1 record. She's got 8 knockouts, 7 submissions, and 10 decisions. She's 37 years old, 5'5" with a 65.5 inch reach. She'll be an inch taller and have a 1.5 inch reach advantage. She's the current flyweight champion. Like I mentioned, she's defended it 2 times. First Kyrgyzstani UFC champion. She's had 8 successful title defenses in her first reign. Obviously won the belt back there from Alexa Grasso. She's got performance of the night 3 times against Juliana Pena, Priscilla Catura, and Jessica Ai. She's also has the most wins in women's flyweight division history. Bit of a tongue twister there. She's got the most wins in the flyweight division at 11 total. Shevchenko did not have an amateur debut, went straight to the pros way back in, where is this here? Her MMA debut was back in April of 2003. A lot of kickboxing and Muay Thai fights prior to that. Her UFC debut came in December 2015, where she got a split decision win over former title challenger Sarah Kaufman. Shevchenko is 14-3-1 in the UFC. She's got 6 stoppage victories. Some notable wins include Sarah Kaufman, Holly Holm, Juliana Pena, Joanna Jacek, Liz Carmouche, Jessica Andrade, Alexa Grasso, and most recently Manon Fiorot. She has 3 losses that are pretty notable there. Amanda Nunes has 2 losses to her. We'll talk about one of those fights in a second here. And then also had that submission loss to Alexa Grasso. Grasso still the first woman to actually finish Valentina Shevchenko in the UFC. Shevchenko hasn't had any major layoffs or injuries. Been pretty active since making her debut way back in 2015. It's crazy to think it'll be 10 years that she's coming up to 10 years that she's fought in the UFC. Shevchenko's had a number of close fights. Let's go through a few of them here. The fight at UFC 215 where she lost a split decision to Amanda Nunes. If you go look on MMAdecisions.com right now, that's where the media can submit their scorecards. 10 media members scored the fight for Nunes, 2 scored it a draw, and 10 scored it for Valentina. That's always a fight that people reference that maybe could have gone the other way for Valentina Shevchenko. Of course, that fight was at 135, and that led to her moving down to the flyweight division. There's also the fight with Talia Santos, which we can't forget. That was a couple years back in 2022. If you go look at the media scorecards for that one at UFC 275, 19 media members scored the fight for Valentina, 8 media members scored the fight for Talia Santos. It was a close one. Remember, Shevchenko hurt Santos's eye in that one. Maybe if that doesn't happen, the fight could have gone her way, but nonetheless, Shevchenko gets the victory there. There was also the draw with Alexa Grasso back in September of 2023. That was at the Noche card. 12 media members scored the fight for Grasso, 11 scored it for Valentina, but it ends up being a draw. So if it does go to Grasso, man, that could have really changed things with Grasso getting back-to-back wins there. So that's kind of an interesting fight. Obviously, Shevchenko went out the next fight and got a pretty decisive victory there over Grasso to keep her title. And then her last fight as well. Let's not forget about that back in May at UFC 315. That was in May of 2025. 17 media members scored the fight for Valentina, 4 scored it for Manon Fiorot. It was a very close fight. I did have Shevchenko winning, but Fiorot put on a very good performance in that one, so just something I wanted to keep tabs of as well. Now, if we look at Valentina's stats, very impressive here as the website's going to load. 3.14 significant strikes landed per minute. Her striking accuracy is at 52%. Her striking defense is at 63%. That's a very high number and something that I think will come into play with this fight with Weili Zhang. Her takedown average is 2.62. Her takedown accuracy is at 60%, and her takedown defense is 75%, although I doubt Weili Zhang going to be shooting for any takedowns in this fight. So that's everything you need to know about Valentina Shevchenko. Again, she's done quite well at 135 and 125, and now she's fighting a girl who's coming up from 115 in Weili Zhang, and let's talk about her right now. You can see the belts there. Very accomplished career. 26-3 record. She's 5'4" with a 63-inch reach. So the only advantage she has here really is that she's a year younger than Valentina Shevchenko. Trains at a Bangto Muay Thai and MMA. She's the current strawweight champion, although I guess she had to vacate to get this fight. She had 4 successful title defenses overall on her run at strawweight. She's got fight of the night 1 time against Joanna Jacek. She's got performance of the night 4 times against Jessica Andrade. Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Carla Esparza and Amanda Lemos. She did not have an amateur debut as well, went straight to the pros way back in November of 2013, made her UFC debut in August 2018, so 3 years after Valentina did. She's got a 10-2 UFC record. She's got 3 stoppage victories. Some notable wins in her career include Jessica Andrade, 2 wins over Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Carla Esparza, Amanda Lemos, Yan Shonan, and most recently Tatiana Suarez. Those are all women who are ranked, and some of those are former champions, including Jędrzejczyk and Esparza. And then her only losses are the 2 losses to Rose Namajunas. The one where she got finished in the first round, and then the second fight where she ended up losing a split decision there, which might as well go look at that fight. If we look at Weili Zhang, let's go over here quickly to MMAdecisions.com. And if you look here, that second Rose fight where she ends up losing, the media scored this one. We're just waiting for it here. So majority of the media did feel like Rose Namajunas won that fight. However, there were, by the looks of it, 7 media members scoring this fight for Weili Zhang, also 1 scoring it a draw. So again, that fight could have gone the other way. So really, outside of a head kick knockout loss to Rose in their first fight, Zhang's only really lost once, if you think about it, right? And that was that fight, because this fight could have maybe gone the other way if Zhang ends up getting the decision win there. So just something to kind of keep in mind. One other thing I wanted to mention with Weili Zhang is that she has fought up a weight class before. So she actually started her career with 2 catchweight fights at 132 pounds. And then she had a couple more fights at flyweight as well, although it's been a while. And also she hasn't fought at flyweight in the UFC. Majority of her fights at 115. So anyone wondering about the weight, Weili Zhang has fought up a weight class before. Weili Zhang's had a lot of layoffs in her career. Let's go through some of those. So going from the first Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight to the Rose Namajunas fight, there was a 413-day layoff. Going from Carla Esparza to Amanda Lemos, there was a 280-day layoff. Going from Lemos to Yan, there was 238-day layoff. And then her last fight, going from Yan Shonan to Tatiana Suarez, there was a 301-day layoff, which is the second longest layoff in her career. This year, she'll be fighting back-to-back for the first time in a while as far as fighting in the same calendar year. Same thing goes with Valentina as well. Weili Zhang has not had any major injuries or anything like that either. And then the only other fight she had that was close, I mentioned the Rose Namajunas one. There was the Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight, which was back in the split decision when she got in March of 2020. 15 media members scored the fight for Zhang, 6 scoring it for Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Let's go look at Weili Zhang's stats. So if you look here, it's 5.15. So her strikes landed per minute is much higher than Valentina's, only at 3.14. So something to keep in mind. 53% striking accuracy. Striking defense is at 54% compared to Valentina's 63. So something to keep in mind there. Takedown average is 2.24. Her takedown accuracy is at 45%. Her takedown defense is at 74%. We'll see if Valentina can get her down if she chooses to do so. So that's everything you need to know there. And then as far as the odds go, right now, we got a few odds here. It's almost a pick'em. One book having Valentina about -115. You've got Weili Zhang being about -111 there. We got some other books that have Weili as the favorite. So this one's going back and forth, and Tapology tells a different story, actually, which is kind of interesting. Doesn't really reflect the odds. Look at this. 68% of people picking Weili Zhang, only 32% picking Valentina Shevchenko. So that's very interesting. And then let's go head over to our friends over at Fight Signal that do the AI projections using data points. And they have Weili Zhang winning 55% of the time compared to 44.93 for Valentina Shevchenko. So that's another sort of thing you can kind of keep in mind. So which way am I going in this fight? This is a tough one here, but I'm going to lean with the current champion, Valentina Shevchenko, and I'm going to be taking her by decision. Now, here's my reasoning for this. First and foremost, 40% of Valentina Shevchenko's wins are by decision. That's 10 total in her career. And Weili Zhang has only been finished 1 time in her career, and that was that loss to Rose Namajunas. So kind of what I'm getting at here, Shevchenko has typically gone the distance her last couple fights. Weili Zhang, tough to finish. Seems more like a decision is more likely. Now, in my opinion, I think Valentina Shevchenko is the better striker between the two. I think she's a little bit more accomplished. We can debate that all you want in the comments. That's totally fine. Not to say that Weili Zhang's a bad striker. Weili Zhang's a great striker. I just think if we're giving someone the edge slightly, I would lean Valentina just slightly in that department. The other thing I got to point out is that Valentina Shevchenko used to fight at 135. She's pretty strong. Valentina didn't look out of place at 135. You know, again, I'd say she's very, very strong. I think the strength advantage in this fight would have to go to Valentina. I know Weili Zhang is very strong at 115. She was able to outmuscle her opponents. That's something I think will serve her well in this fight. But if we're picking between the two, I would argue that Valentina is going to be a little bit stronger here. So that's something to keep in mind too. The other thing I want to point out is I think people are really overhyping that win over Tatiana Suarez. We saw Suarez's last fight against Amanda Lemos. Good win, but I think Suarez with the injuries and the layoffs, it doesn't look as good of a win now. Just seeing where Suarez is going to go from here. Suarez does not look like the old Suarez of old. And remember in that first round, Suarez was actually able to get Weili down and control her. It was just the rest of the fight that Tatiana Suarez has next to no striking, and Weili Zhang was just having a sparring session, basically. She's not going to be able to do that against Valentina, who's a very accomplished striker in her own right. The other thing is Weili Zhang's not that much younger than Valentina. If you want to go on the angle of that Valentina's declining, Weili's 36, Valentina's 37. I don't think there's a big age gap there. And then the other thing you got to look at too is that Valentina Shevchenko is yet to get knocked out in her career, in her MMA career. I think the one TKO loss she did had was a cut against Liz Carmouche. So I don't think Weili Zhang's going to knock her out. Not to mention Weili Zhang hasn't been getting a lot of stoppage wins by knockout either. You have to go all the way back to 2019, the last time she had a TKO victory. She's had a couple submission wins, but again, I don't think Weili Zhang's like that much of a submission threat. No more different than Alexa Grasso is. And I don't think Shevchenko's going to get in that type of spot as well. If you look at Shevchenko's takedown defense, it's 75%. I don't know if Zhang will be able to take her down in this fight. So I think it's going to end up who's going to be the better striker. And this is, to put this in simpler terms, I think Shevchenko's got a little bit more pop behind her punches compared to Weili Zhang because she's the mainstay at 125. So that's something to consider too. Now, the one thing I will say in this fight, that fight against Manon Fiorot in her last fight with Valentina was a little bit too close for comfort. I did have Valentina winning, but is that a sign of her slowing down, or is that a case of Manon Fiorot is actually a really good fighter here? Like in some ways, this is a similar fight where you have a very good striker going at Valentina. And Valentina was able to pass that test. So that makes me think she can take out Weili Zhang as well. The other thing with Weili is like how much time has she had to bulk up? I know she made this decision sort of earlier in the year to actually, I guess her last fight was in December, right? That Suarez fight, or no, it was in February. Never mind. Why did I think the fight was earlier? So February to now, is that much time to bulk up and, have a strength advantage over Valentina? I'm not so sure. So either way, I don't think we're going to see a finish in this fight. I think if you wanted to play it safe, you take the fight goes the distance. I don't think Weili's going to knock out Valentina. I don't think she's going to submit her. And conversely, I don't think Valentina Shevchenko is going to knock out Weili Zhang. So I'm expecting a pretty close fight here. But I think once again, I think Valentina will slightly edge this one out by decision. And that's the pick I'm going with in this fight. So let me know in the comments your prediction for this fight. Who do you think gets it done? Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. This is Early Look. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.